Hey, I'm live. All right. Hey, we're back with the show. Been out for a couple of weeks. Not exactly sure. I haven't talked to JB in a couple of weeks. I've been sick as well as bombarded with a crazy amount of work. Um, so I haven't talked to him, and I kind of quickly sent an email out this morning when I was setting up the show, and I didn't get a response. So I'm not sure if JB is going to make the show tonight or not. Also, tonight's show is going to be a shortened version. I'm only going to do an hour. I actually have a Zoom meeting that I need to do at 6:30. It's partly why the show hasn't been going on the last couple of weeks, and that is I'm doing a consulting project with a contractor friend of mine where I'm the go-between his steel detailer and him, trying to help keep all of the drawings and everything organized to help the project go smoothly. Um, and I basically have 3 Zoom meetings a week with those guys. Hey, Mr. Brown, how are you tonight? Um, so Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, we have Zoom meetings so that we can go over progress and everything because he's in California, I'm in Tennessee. So that's partly been what's going on. Other part that's been going on is a couple weeks ago I went to a doctor's appointment, had some blood work done, and found that I got a little bit of a health problem going on. One of which is my blood pressure's kind of gone wonky, and it's made me dizzy, and I've actually fallen down a couple of times in the last couple of weeks now while I'm trying to get the blood pressure medicine all ironed out. So that's kind of been what's been going on. Also, you'll notice as I'm going through the night that I got the wrist brace back on because, yeah, I'm having problems with my wrist from the injury in January. Turns out there's an underlying issue with my wrist. So, yay, all kinds of fun crap going on, which is probably why the show has been spotty for the last couple of months. I've been trying to deal with a whole bunch of things. And quite frankly, that just time is crazy. Crazy trying to keep up with everything. And sometimes I just can't even keep up with it. And with the Zoom meetings being at 6:30 because that's 3:30 West Coast time, and that's basically after his kind of daily operation shut down, and it gives him time to go through stuff with me. So, and I don't really want to do it later. He doesn't want to do it later, so kind of got that screwed up. So for the next couple of weeks, at least the next couple of weeks, when I do a show, it's only going to be an hour long because my Zoom meetings are going to happen at 6:30 every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Anywho, other than that, propaganda. What's happening? Did you notice? I like said I haven't talked to JB in a couple of weeks. Um, I have been. I haven't really talked to anybody in a couple of weeks. Basically, the only people I have talked to has been my mother, my wife, and my daughters. um, but yeah, I wanted to come on, get into a show tonight, at least for an hour, and say what's up to everybody. Say hi, howdy to Ooh Ah. I know he posted a message in here super early this morning, and just you know, there's all kinds of crazy crap going on. Thank you, Mr. Brown. It's nothing serious. It's just, you know, going to be 52 this year. My wife has been sort of asking me to go to the doctor and do blood work and get all the general health things checked out, and cancer screenings, all of that. And yeah, luckily, it was they caught something that I didn't. It's been a problem. I've had some bouts with you get up too quick and you get lightheaded, and I just attributed it to I stood up too quick, um, and it turns out that my body's having a hard time controlling my blood pressure. So it spikes and it drops and spikes and it drops and spikes and it drops. So they know what the problem is. Now we're just sort of ironing out the dosage of the medicine to keep it stable. But in the meantime, yeah, I actually I fell down my stairs last week, um, which, yeah, real Joe Biden moment because I didn't fall going down, I fell going up, which lucky for me. And then I fell getting up off the couch a couple days ago. So yeah, definitely don't. Well, the nice thing is I've gotten fatter in my old age, so I have more cushion for when I fall. That's the um, so yeah. I mean, it's not. I'm not here to complain about old people problems. Here to talk about the craziness and the madness, and like I said, I haven't talked to JB, and I'm a little sad that he wasn't able to join tonight. I didn't hear back from him today, so hopefully everything is going okay with him. I know he dropped off of a bunch of social media stuff because um, I don't want to get too much into it because I would rather when we got him back on the show have him talk about it. But he did post on Instagram that he got a cease and desist from Operation 11 Charlie, that stop talking bad about us, which I kind of find entertaining that they sent it to him and they didn't send anything to me. Now who cares? But he and I did talk about that, and I think we're both in agreement that we've said what we need to say about those guys. Nothing else we need to talk about there. So we'll probably let that sleeping dog lie. So what else? What else has been going on? Yeah, the cease and desist thing was more along the lines of stop harassing, and it came from a legit lawyer. So I freaking hate the clock change propaganda. I mean, I like that it stays lighter later now, but I hate that we have to change it. I hate the winter time when the days, the sun comes up at like 8 o'clock in the morning and then is gone by 4 in the afternoon. Yeah, Mr. Brown. When the last I had talked to him, right about the time he got that, I basically said, there's no point in proceeding posting stuff on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, because at this point now, mostly what happens is anytime you post something in a Facebook group, the admin just takes it down anyhow. So, and if he posts a comment somewhere on another post that was already there talking about it, then the admins just remove his comments. Or they go in and they scold him like, "Oh, I don't need to bring this personal stuff in there." And it's clear that the RC community is much like a lot of times what happens is they feel like you're attacking one of them, so they circle the wagons, and they don't, especially when it comes to veterans. Nobody can say anything bad about groups that are helping veterans. And I do say helping quotes because who knows how much actual help is being done. I've seen a bunch of stuff. Yeah, nobody likes to be talked about negative, but it's when you're running around misrepresenting yourself, you have to expect there's going to be some negative feedback. And it's not like JB or I are just a couple of random nobodies talking badly about them. We were a part of it, so we know the inner workings, and we know some of the shenanigans that happened behind the scenes. And yeah, nobody wants that to be pointed out. And like I said, it's, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing more that needs to be said there. I think we've said everything we need to say. Um, I think Justin was more enjoying poking the bear than anything. Um, and the bear went and freaking lawyered up. So just like everything nowadays, nobody wants to listen to anything negative. They don't want any, by any means, you can't have anything bad to say about people who say they're doing good, saving lives, and yada yada yada. So, like I said, let sleeping dogs lie on that. And I personally think that everybody needs to take a break from social media. Um, I have been dwindling down my Facebook slowly over time with the intent of eventually I'm gonna take my Facebook um, private. I'm not really gonna have anybody. That's what I was afraid of, Mr. Brown, is that he isn't feeling too good. So made a point that I'm going to give him a call tomorrow because, like I said, I haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks. I feel kind of bad. Generally, just JB and I talk at least once a week aside from the show. Um, yeah, I propaganda. I think RC as a whole is suffering pretty bad. YouTube wise, I think it's suffering pretty bad um, from YouTube just having gotten everything so mucked up with the algorithm and views and subscriptions. Um, Everything just seems to be kind of wonky with YouTube right now. Nothing seems to work right. Um, and even myself, looking at some of my older videos that have one of my specifically one of my videos that has about 20,000 views on it, that is um, that I made since I monetized my channel. So 20,000 views on that video in 2024 as of right now makes you about $62 total. A friend of mine who's been on YouTube since 2008 or 2009, he's got videos that have well over 100,000 views. And he said, 2013, 2014, 20,000 views would probably be closer to $500 or $600. So yeah, the money has been cut way down, and it makes people less motivated to want to create content. Like you said, propaganda RC content is wavering right now. I think the RC market is kind of soft, and so you're focusing on the figures, which is, WWE figures is a solid market. It's a solid market. It's a market that WWE has been popular since its inception, going all the way back to pre WWE, WWF, and all the other different organizations that they get flip flopping around. My total income from YouTube wasn't even enough to cover my monthly subscription to Adobe Premiere. Basically my business was covering all my RC expenses, and my business is never consistent. It's always up and down and up and down. So there isn't, sometimes there's money coming in. That's great. Sometimes there isn't money coming in. My regular day job takes care of paying the bills and whatnot. So when there isn't money coming in from side business, there's no extra play money. Yeah, it's, I've seen a lot of a lot of my YouTube channel subscriptions that I have, 90% of which are RC, Content's way down, way down. A lot of people are just not making videos anymore, or they're few and far between. Where some of these guys were making 2-3 videos a week. And I see Harley is, he keeps up, but RC every day posts videos. But I know, like, RC every day, that's his livelihood. YouTube is his business now. So, and even that, his business was so not that great that he started selling rat rod kits. So yeah, unfortunately, I think the RC social media still pretty strong on Facebook, although what little RC stuff I am in on Facebook is it's still the same old shit. It's still the same old, this company stuff is better, this company stuff is garbage, and a bunch of people posting pictures about, they did this and they're doing this and doing that. It's not much there has changed. Instagram, I don't really do much on Instagram. The one thing I have noticed lately, and it's funny, my wife and I just talked about it yesterday. I follow cut back from daily to 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah, it's YouTube just isn't paying the money, and all the really big YouTubers that have millions of subscribers, even they are venturing off into selling merchandise, and they do Patreon and site memberships and whatnot. So they're even making content that is only pay-per-view content. Yeah, propaganda. I've had like 897 followers on Instagram since probably like 3 months after I started an Instagram account, and it's never changed. It just was and Instagram was, to me, it was always sub for sub. You just run around and follow a bunch of people, and then they just follow you back. And I was like, well, that's not really organic growth. I didn't even know how Instagram shares your stuff with people. Yeah, paid sponsors. You see everybody's doing commercials during their videos now. Speaking of commercials, how crazy is everything getting with commercials? Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I can't watch a 10-minute YouTube without 3 commercial breaks in it now. And probably 3/4 of them are like skippable, but it's still, you're watching something and then it's like, oh, okay, I gotta watch this crap for 5 seconds just so I can skip past it. Facebook, I notice when I go into my home feed on Facebook on my phone, I go through like 3 pages of ads before I see an actual post from somebody I know or one of the groups that I'm a part of. And it's like, man, all Facebook is now is ads. And Instagram, it's like post ad, post ad, post ad, post ad. Every other thing is ad. Mr. Brown, on my computer, I have ad block. My phone, I'm trying not to do a lot of social media stuff on my phone. Because I'm trying to break away from my phone, so that my phone is essentially just a phone, and then maybe I do pay attention to emails, because it's nice to be able to check emails, my business emails, and personal emails on my phone rather than have to turn my laptop on all the time. But I am trying to break my phone habit. I think I've talked about it before, where my wife and I have caught each other doing it, where I have the TV on and I have my phone in my hand, and there's something going on the TV, but I'm looking at my phone, and my wife walks into the room. She's like, "You're literally doing the thing that you complain about all the time." Uh, YouTube Music. Yeah, paid for my daughter has a pay for YouTube, which she loves it because yeah, there's basically no ads there. Um, but even Amazon Prime now, Amazon Prime, I have to pay $2.99 a month extra to not have ads. Where for years I've had Amazon Video, Amazon Prime, where I didn't have commercials, except if I went to their freebie thing, which is their TV shows free with ads. uh, Chicks, yeah, Amazon, and then it sucks. It sucks. I mean, I'm basically at the end of streaming services being useful anymore. I can't. I will not sign up for Netflix. I won't sign up for Peacock or Paramount or Apple. Hulu is absolutely not Disney Plus. So I basically Amazon Video was the last one that I had to be able to watch anything, and even that is becoming kind of a pain in the ass. Everything pay. Yeah, it's basically streaming has just become pay-per-view, and streaming has now become what cable was. If you want to watch NBC content, you have to pay for Peacock. If you want to watch HBO, I don't even know who HBO is through, but you have to pay for HBO. Pay for. We're back to cable. We've come full circle with television now. You're paying for everything, and it's even more. I mean, I remember when we got rid of cable and we had Netflix and we had uh, Disney Plus and Hulu, and it was great. It was absolutely wonderful. Just watch whatever you want. If it's in the evening and you start watching something, you're like, oh, yeah, we're gonna go. Then you just put it on pause, turn the TV off, and then come back, pick up, watching what you wanted later. But then Netflix went full pedophile, with their programming. Disney has just turned to shit. They can't make anything good. Basically, we got tired of watching all the old Disney stuff on Disney Plus because none of the new stuff is worth watching. Yeah, my buddy's got Paramount and said that it's Peacock. I won't give those people my money. And most of it boils down to just everybody in the entertainment industry is so focused on you can't have white people anymore. There can't be white people in anything. Hell, even Google's AI just took white people out of history. Scottish people from 1820, they made them black. I think Paramount has Yellowstone. Actually, I don't know who has Yellowstone. My buddy works on Yellowstone, and honestly, the only bits of Yellowstone that I've seen is the pirated stuff that I found on YouTube, and it looks like an okay show, but yeah, most of the stuff coming out of Hollywood and TV is just garbage. NASCAR's gone to Amazon. Yeah, NASCAR's going to take a giant shit. They've set up this whole media deal where they were supposed to be in talks and partnering up with the car owners, and it just is. There's so much greed nowadays with everything, and everybody is about the money. That when you talk about billions of dollars, that has to be split up amongst a whole bunch of race teams and racetracks, and um, everybody's got their hand out, and everybody thinks that they're getting screwed by the other side. Those have not been good negotiations. They just haven't. The NASCAR is trying to negotiate all of these with all these different networks. Yeah, they signed with Amazon, but the biggest problem with NASCAR is NASCAR. NASCAR needs to shift its focus back to providing good racing, not trying to make these ridiculous rules on the cars and the construction of the cars and everything to ensure that everything is even. They need to let the teams have some leeway to try and do something to improve their chances of winning. Kind of like Formula One. Formula One's going through the same thing. They're trying to hogtie all these teams to not allow them to truly advance or do anything different, and they're ruining the sport. Who wants to watch Max Verstappen win every race by 22 seconds and then his teammate finishes second? It's boring. NASCAR. Hey, JM, how you doing? Yeah, NASCAR. They do have parity. Different people win every week. You don't see guys go on huge winning streaks in NASCAR, but you also have 3 hours of a bunch of cars going around trying desperately not to wreck one another. Atlanta, awesome race. The 3 abreast finished within 5 bajillionths of a second of one another. Fantastic. But the rest of that race was a snooze fest. So was Daytona. And not to mention, they need to allow NASCAR to go back to the super teams, the Hendricks, the Ganassis, the Penske's. Allow them to own as many cars as they want. If them guys got enough money to put 15 cars in the field and all 15 of those cars make every single race, great. That's 15 competitive cars out on the track. If you release some of the rules and allow them to try and make the cars go faster and not hamper them with all this crap. Yeah. And you're going to also see that, super teams and guys like Penske, Stewart-Haas, Ganassi, Hendrick, the guys who are willing to spend the money to bring the talent in will bring the talent in. And they won't be reliant on, Joe Gibbs bringing his kid in, whom Ty Gibbs has a reasonable amount of talent, but he's the boss's son. That's why he's there. He ran strong at Phoenix, but come down to the end, he used up his shit and his car was garbage. And the guys that are, talented, Christopher Bell is a very talented driver, and he was strong all day, but he wasn't pushing all day. And coasting to the last 20 laps. Christopher Bell cruised along for the whole race, showed that he was capable of running up front, cruised around. When it came down to the end of the race, he was gone, checked out. Bye, see you guys later, I'm winning. And racing is becoming no longer, it's no longer where talent gets you to the top. Money gets you to the top. There's so many examples of people who don't belong in the top tier of their perspective motorsports. It's not even funny. In one of the few places in racing where you don't see that is road racing. The World Endurance Championship. And I can't say you don't see that, because there's obviously guys with a lot of money there who aren't the most talented, but they're still racing. But IMSA, World Endurance Championship, at the top level, the GT3s, the GTPs, There's not a lot of guys running in there that are there because they bring a lot of money in. These are teams that have a lot of money, and they put the best talent they can find in the seat of their race car because they want to win. Yeah, Hailie Deegan. Hailie Deegan's running in the Infinity Series after 3 seasons in the Truck Series where she has less than a 5% top 10 finish percentage. And there are at least 10 guys in the Infinity Series right now. There's about 15 guys in the Truck Series right now that have above a 10% top 5 finish rate. They're not getting offered rides in the Infinity Series or getting offered rides in the NASCAR Series because there's guys in those series that they got money. They bring money to the table, and they keep people out of they keep talented drivers out of top tier because they're not bringing money to the table. A really good example of a guy that has so much talent they couldn't is Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson is hands down probably the best driver in NASCAR. If they could put together a setup for him every single week and they could make the car durable every week, I would say he would probably win 6 out of 10 races. Hands down. I mean, I've seen that kid wheel a sprint car in ways that you haven't seen from guys since the Kinsers, the Swindells, the Brad Doties, the Doug Wolfgang days, when those guys had to drive the shit out of them sprint cars. Yeah, Hailie Deegan's got monster energy. She brings millions of dollars to the table. So, of course, she's in Infinity. And I don't think she's actually finished a race yet this year. I think she's crashed out of every single race. I know Daytona and Atlanta. I don't know how she did at Phoenix. But I mean, even when you don't, like I rarely watch entire races. I don't have streaming services, so I'm not able to watch it. But even when I go back and watch the highlights for the Infinity Series on YouTube for Phoenix was like 6 minutes. The entire race was condensed down into 6 minutes. And of that 6 minutes, I think 2 minutes of it was like the first 10 laps of the race, which basically was just everybody scrambling for position. So the races are boring. And F1 highlights are the same way, except, they make 12-minute long videos, and it's basically somebody got loose coming out of a corner, and then every single time one of the cars breaks down, that's the highlight video. The start, cars breaking down, and an occasional crash, and then the final lap of Max Verstappen winning. Of which this might be the first season in history where Max Verstappen wins literally every single race. The only way he doesn't win is if his car breaks or if he gets appendicitis. Yeah, Mr. Brown, that freaking Atlanta race was terrible. They ruined 1.5 mile cookie cutter tracks have ruined NASCAR. They got it down to where they're hardly running any short tracks anymore. They run the super speedways. They ruined those with plates. Restrictor plate racing is god awful boring. And the rest of the races of the year. So you got Kansas, Michigan. You had California. It's not the same anymore. But you had Kansas, Michigan, California, Texas, Charlotte, Atlanta. I'm trying to think of the other ones. They were basically all kind of the same. Like Kansas, Michigan, and California were all basically exactly the same. They were just freaking 200 miles an hour, but you couldn't pass. It's a single lane track. You couldn't pass. I think the most recent arguments where they don't give the guys enough horsepower is part of it. Michigan, California, Kansas, tracks like that, when they put the Indy cars on there, them guys are doing like 250 miles an hour down the straightaway. And it's pretty freaking awesome. I went to a race at California Speedway, a NASCAR race, once, and vowed never to go back there ever again, because it was terrible, because they held the race in like September, and it was 120 something degrees outside in Fontana, which is a shithole. And it was ungodly hot, and you could barely stand out in the sun for very long. You had to stand under the shade. There's hardly any shade over the stands at all. But that, and I mean, we had pretty decent seats. I think we were only like 6 rows up going into turn 1. But it was boring. It was a boring day. The most exciting part of that whole weekend that we went was the fact that we had pit passes, and the night before they had this great big party where they had a concert with I forget who the country singer was, but they had a concert there. They had all this crap that you got basically for free, of which they don't do anymore for free. You got to pay for all of it. I agree, Mr. Brown. If they would take the restrictions off the engines, take the suspension, all the suspension geometry restrictions away. Your car, your tires can only be so wide. The outside tire to outside tire can only be so wide. You can only put so much camber in there, but other than that, yeah, go freaking crazy. If you can come up with some crazy shock that makes your car go through the corner 2 miles an hour faster, woohoo! And once everybody else figures that out, then they're going to do it too. F1 is so bad that they had to make a TV series out of it. NASCAR is so bad they had to make a TV series out of it. Drive to Survive. They were hoping so much that they could revive Formula One by adding all of this behind the scenes drama into it, which is all they've done. And that's the same thing they're doing right now. Christian Horner and Red Bull and all this, they're creating all this drama because there's no drama on the racetrack. I mean, they got a race this weekend. I don't even remember where it's at, but they got a race this weekend. But I could hands down say that I could go online and place a bet that Max Verstappen is going to win. Max Verstappen is that good, but the majority of it is the Red Bull car is faster than everybody else. So I'd be willing to bet that out of the 20 drivers in Formula One, you could take 15 of them, put them in that Red Bull, and they would win every single race too. And everybody would be talking about how that driver is the greatest of all time. Like they're talking about Max Verstappen is the greatest of all time. And the kid's only won 3 championships. Granted, he's good, but it's a little early to be talking about GOAT. I don't even consider Lewis Hamilton I'll put him in top 5, but 7 world championships in a car that was clearly more dominant than everybody else, that doesn't make you a great driver. It just means that they put you in a car that was unbeatable. And NASCAR's heading down the same path. They're gonna hog tie all the teams to be driving around in cars where there's very little room to work with for technological advancement, for performance enhancement, that they're just, NASCAR's been working that way for a long time. They want to make all the cars exactly the same and make it like the IROC series where all the cars are exactly the same, and your driving talent is what propels you to wins and championships. Except they can't even do that. Because like I said, I would hands down say that Kyle Larson is arguably the best driver out there, but he doesn't always get the best car. They don't get the setup right, which is, that's great and all, but for all the work that NASCAR has done, you're still not putting exactly the same cars out there and then letting the drivers race for wins and championships. There's still teams that are doing things differently that are giving them an advantage. And don't even get me started about cheating. Cheating is an art form in NASCAR and Formula One. It's even becoming an art form in I don't know how many people pay attention to late models, but Bobby Pierce just got popped for doping his tires. And I think Daniel Moran and somebody else from the Dirt Car Series got popped for doping their tires. I have recently I have been watching a bunch of clips of Dale Earnhardt and Darrell Waltrip interactions from like the 80s and the 90s. And for as fierce competitors as they were on the track, they were equally as entertaining off the track. Dale Sr. still, hands down, he is the GOAT of NASCAR. I'll argue that against Richard Petty all day long. Richard Petty may have won more races, but Richard Petty also raced during an era where, much like Formula One right now, he had a car that was so much better than everybody else's. You couldn't touch him. Them days of Dodge Daytona. So what Dale Earnhardt Sr. did to win 7 championships and all the races that he did, I believe is far more of an accomplishment. And even going to the next step, which would be Jeff Gordon. When Jeff Gordon came onto the scene, what he did with the number of races he won and the championships that he won is a testament to how good he was and how good Hendricks was as a team. That was part of Dale Earnhardt's success, was also the fact that Richard Childress, that was a really good race team. Really, they gelled well, and that, probably more than anything, that's most important in a big time series like that, is having all the right people and making that puzzle as complete as possible so that everything works all the time. Every week you could count on Dale Earnhardt Sr. running at the front every single week. Jeff Gordon every single week. And it takes, it's not just because Dale Earnhardt was such a great driver. Dale Earnhardt had the backing of a bunch of people that made everything work exactly the way he needed it to race the way he could. Been some great, I've heard, like I said, I've been watching a bunch of Dale Earnhardt stuff, and some of the stories about old Dale in the late 80s and the 90s when NASCAR was still kind of wide open and crazy, and guys talking about they would be in front of Dale Earnhardt and he would be directing them what to do from behind them. You'd look up in the mirror and Dale Earnhardt is telling them, pointing and telling them what to do, and basically controlling their races. And the other one was, to the detriment of him, which do believe ultimately is why he died, was Dale was not a big fan of the wearing the seatbelt harnesses super tight. But back in the day, before they had the big wraparound seats and everything, they talk about how Dale would drive with one hand, and he'd have like one arm up, like he was riding in a bench seat car. Yeah, I mean that's old school racing. That's nowadays you're putting the drivers in a little cocoon, which I think a bunch of drivers have even started complaining about the fact that they're in NASCAR. They're in those gigantic seats with those pads around that they literally can't move, but they also can't see very good. And when they do get into a crash, they're so compacted and so tight in there that they don't feel the effects of the crash until much later. Oh yeah. A funny story. My aunt and uncle were really good friends. They were neighbors with Cale Yarborough. And at one point, Cale, I think, owned a car that Dick Trickle raced on short tracks. And they were joking about how they always had to install they were always robbing people's cigarette lighters from their car so that they could install them in Dick's race cars. And he also didn't, when he jumped up to NASCAR Cup Series, before they mandated wearing full face helmets and everything, Dale Earnhardt, I think Darrell Waltrip was one of them. They were, super against wearing full face helmets for various different reasons. But Dick Trickle's main reason was, how the hell am I going to smoke a freaking cigarette with that stupid thing in my front of my mouth? But I even think there was they had an in-car camera in Dick Trickle's car in one of the Cup races, and they had jumped over to the in-car camera during yellow flag, and he was driving along, puffing away in a cigarette. They had to cut away the camera real quick because that was about the time when they were trying to get rid of Winston and cigarettes are bad. The good old days. Good old days of racing, man. It's sad to see what racing has become. And it's even more sad what the young generation is right now. I miss the good old days propaganda. There's a certain allure and nostalgia to back in the day when you strapped yourself into a race car and you hugged your wife and you kissed your wife and you said, and she said, good luck. And you got in a race car and there was a chance that could be it. I had again, funny thing. I just had a conversation with my wife last night about, I know a couple of drivers that I grew up with and raced with that, one of which suffered catastrophic injuries. And he is, he doesn't have all of his mental capacity anymore. He has the mental capacity of probably a 9 or a 10-year-old kid. But he still has memories. He's still, power steering. He still has memories. The last time I talked with him, we were talking about regrets, and I straight up asked him, if you could go back and change anything about what you did throughout your racing career, what would it be? And he said, never start. And that was pretty shocking because, hey, this is a guy who grew up racing. He comes from a racing family, and it was kind of sad to hear that. Another friend of mine who got into an accident where another driver was killed, and he straight up he was done after that. He didn't want to have anything to do with being in the car, around the races. Um, but there was a reasonable expectation of risk, whereas um, nowadays these kids freaking they send it with reckless abandon. I mean, I'm watching motocross and supercross, and I'm seeing, it used to be acceptable to do a block pass, and that was you go into the corner, you ride the guy up, the guy on the outside basically has got to stop, and then you ride off, and that's how you passed him. You basically cut his line off, and then and away you go. Nowadays, they just go into the corner and ram the hell into you and knock you off the bike and maybe off the track, and then keep going. And it's like, no, and nothing happens. Well, it's just hard racing. No, you took the guy out. That's what happened. You took the guy out in order to pass him. You weren't fast enough to pass him regularly, so you just crashed into him to get him out of your way. But I mean, sprint cars, late models, midgets especially. There's a reason why kids shouldn't start racing at the midget level until they're 18. Because I'm seeing these 14, 15-year-old kids that are running midgets and micro sprints. They don't belong there. They don't belong there. They don't understand ramifications. They don't understand racing etiquette. I don't understand how their parents don't teach them racing etiquette. But it's a mess. Racing is a mess. It's going to be a mess for a while. And partly, I got to say, I'm going to be 52. I'm a Generation Xer. And the Generation Xers that are raising kids right now are the people that are raising kids that are pieces of shit. Jeff was absolutely a magician with Arrow, partly because Ray Abraham was super, super smart about that. And he explained very well how all you got to do, you don't got to go up and bump a guy out of the way. All you got to do is go up and take the air off of that rear wing, and he's either going to let off or he's crashing in the wall. Yeah, these teenagers right now, these are Gen X's kids. The 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, like this girl in St. Louis that smashed this girl's head into the concrete. Those are our kids. Those are the Gen X's kids. We've done that. That's our generation that has ruined an entire generation by us being dickheads. That's, it's the sad truth, but it's the truth. Our parents didn't let us get away with that shit. As far as I know, when I was a kid, schoolyard rules are as soon as a person's on the ground, the fight's over. That's it. The fight's over. And what happened between my parents' generation, my generation, and the next generation is we forgot to tell the kids the rules about some shit. We just let them run buck wild with anywhere, do whatever they want. And it's what we're getting. Gangs of teenagers running around looting stores and beating people within an inch of their life. And, gangs of kids that will beat up one kid, and when he's on the ground, they'll go kick him in the head and stomp on him and kick him in the ribs, kick him in the stomach. It's like, hey, parents, just like racing, there's life etiquette. You don't smash somebody's head into the ground 3 times after they're already on the ground, basically defenseless. But now, no, this poor little girl, 15-year-old girl's got brain damage. She's got a fractured skull. I read the whole thing that her parents put out today. This is something's going to be with her the rest of her life if she even survives it. She's got brain hemorrhaging, she's got bleeding on the brain, she's got all of that. And basically all over a schoolyard fight. And I'm not going to talk about the race thing and all of that because it doesn't matter what race that girl was that did that. She's a 15-year-old girl that beat a girl to within an inch of her life and then just jumped up and ran off to fight with somebody else. That is a lack of my generation teaching that generation the value of life, the value of life and simple rules and etiquette for life. And it's overflowing into everything. We have people that are concerned about money and only money all the time. They don't care who they hurt, how they hurt, what they do. As long as they're getting money, they don't care. Every single big company out there making billions of dollars. I know propaganda. There's a problem within certain communities with a culture, and a culture that's been around for a couple decades now. And unfortunately, again, these are kids that are my kids' generation. And, the lack of parenting, the lack of guidance, the lack of fathers is a huge thing, because that's the strong arm of the dad in the family is usually what makes kids value things like life. The being the breadwinner, being the provider, being masculine. Unfortunately, we've flushed a lot of things down the toilet lately. 2-job families have kids that run buck wild. Yeah. It's partly why my wife and I changed our entire lives, so that we could move here and live here and be able to do the things that we want to do while being able to avoid all of the nonsense. Having a good pit boss. Cheating on setup, what wins races. Earl, cheating in NASCAR is probably the most artful of art forms in cheating than any other motorsport. Those people were more creative than anybody. I mean, Formula One really never had that many rules to cheat per se. IndyCar is the same way. It's basically them cars are just flat out. But NASCAR, has always been really specific about certain things. And yeah, an art form. No more so probably looking at Tony Eury Sr., Tony Eury Jr. Both of them guys were freaking amazing. Obviously, Ray Evernham, Chad Knaus. Chad Knaus was a cheating mastermind. That guy came up with the whole breakaway bolt thing for the suspension so that it would lower the car like 2 inches. At some part during the race, the bolt would break away and the suspension would drop down, and it would give Jimmy Johnson, like a half a second a lap advantage. But Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s podcast has actually had a lot of great stuff about some of the old cheating days. And, he's had Tony Eury Sr. on there talking about some of the stuff that they did. He had Kevin Harvick on there talking about some of the stuff that Tony Eury Jr. was doing. Whereas now NASCAR has the sniffer test. And that was basically because Kevin Harvick's Richard Childress had a deal set up so that if they mashed the gas pedal down hard enough, it actually raised the carburetor off the manifold to allow extra oxygen in for more horsepower. Man, amazing stuff. Propaganda. Video games are, as y'all know, I started sim racing. I joined iRacing at the beginning, like the second week of February. And with iRacing, you got to work up through some licenses. And I've gotten myself up to the C license where now I'm able to run some midgets and 305 sprint cars, which is an absolute blast. But one of the best things and the most entertaining has been running the series that's called Draft Masters in iRacing, which is Daytona and Talladega. And they just rotate between different eras of NASCAR cars, going all the way back to the 1980s legends. If NASCAR just simply went back and took everything there was in NASCAR in 1987 and said, this is exactly what you can do now, their races would be phenomenal. Them cars in 1987, this would be like the first few years with the new Ford Thunderbird where Aero was just coming into play. Them cars are doing 220 miles an hour down the straightaway without the draft. In the draft, you can get them cars cranked up to 230, 235, and it's insane. They're insane. It's insane trying to keep them under control. You could weed out 3/4 of the shitty NASCAR drivers in probably 3 races. If you're just like, yep, y'all just do whatever you want. Yeah, NASCAR is suffering. It's suffering. They monkeyed around with it too much, trying to create artificial excitement. Now you got stages. You get stage points, then you go into the playoff system, and they boiled down a whole season of racing to one race where you get 2 guys that get to fight it out for the championship. Come on. If a guy goes out and wins 30 races in a year because he's just kicking the shit out of everybody, he deserves to win a championship. Not he wins 30 races, goes into the playoffs, gets wrecked in the first race, and is out of the championship hunt. Done. That's how Jimmy Johnson's got 7 championships, because they literally gambled during the playoffs in order to keep him running towards the front. But anyhow, guys, I do have to cut the show short today. Like I said, the next few weeks, at least the next few weeks, I'm only going to be able to do an hour show because I got to jump onto a Zoom meeting. This project that we're working on is crazy awesome. A lot of really unique architectural features to this thing that he's building, and and the detailer, there's a lot of, there's just a lot. There's a ton of engineering that's gone into it from the architect and engineer side. There's a ton of work that's gone into it from the detailer. And then all of the fabrication and everything that needs to happen. I'm basically trying to help him out as a consultant with the drawings and being a go-between between the engineer, the detailers, and him to make sure that once he actually gets his team starting to fabricate stuff, that they don't end up getting a bunch of rework, because this is the kind of project that, it can make or break you, and I don't want it to break them. I used to work for him back in California. He's I would consider him to be a good friend of mine, so more than happy to jump in and help him out with this. Plus, I get to collect a little consulting fee on it, which, hey, it's not a lot, but it helps. But I appreciate everybody. Mr. Brown, Earl, Propaganda, JM, I saw you in here earlier. Good to see everybody, man. I'm glad to be back doing the show. It kind of sucks not being able to do it. My Wednesdays were kind of boring, so it's gonna be nice to get back into the swing of things, get back into a flow. And I'm going to get on the phone with Mr. JB tomorrow and crack the whip on him, getting his health in order so that we can get back here next week and bring another hour show and keep going until I get done with this project. Then we'll be back to our normal 2-hour show. So thank you all, everybody, once again for coming in and hanging out. I appreciate it. And we'll see y'all next Wednesday.